What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be kind of a weird episode because there's a lot of small things that need to be done, so I'm going to be jumping around quite a bit. Bed's got to come back off. I'll explain that. And the truck in the rear end is actually going to be lifted back up. So, I don't know. I'll describe that. I'll tell you guys what's going on with that here in a minute. But, got to get a couple other things accomplished too, like the shock mounts. I have the custom drive shaft. That's already in. I'm going to pull that back out so I can paint it. I just want to test fit it. So there's also that. And then just a few other small little things, but mainly this is just going to be kind of an update video accomplishing some of the smaller things for the rear end. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. So like I said, the rear end, I'm going to be lifting it back up. And the reason for it is between the axle and the frame. I'll show you guys. If you look right there, right at that gap, that's going to be my gap. That's only about 3 inches worth of room for the truck to actually squat before it hits the axle. And I already planned on putting another bump stop in place there, so I'm going to have even less room to work with. So that is why the rear end is going to come back up a little bit. So right now there's a 3-inch difference between the front and the rear, so I'm basically, all I'm going to do is I'm going to match the front. So I'm going to lift the rear back up, you know, using the DJM lowering kit, the adjustability on it. I'm going to raise the rear end back up 3 inches so that it matches the front. That should give me about 6 inches between the frame and the axle, which will be sufficient room for a bump stop, and then to be able to squat when I'm launching off the line. So. Okay guys, so with the bed off, I'm going to, on the front shackle here, I'm going to drop it down to the bottom hole, and then on the rear shackle, I'm also going to do the bottom hole back here, put the bed back on, see where we're at from there, and then make more adjustments if I need to. But that will be my start. The other thing, I'm going to pull the drive shaft back out. Right now it's just kind of sitting in here. I'm going to pull that back out. That's going to be painted. Another thing is I want to get my measurements for the shocks. Now, because I said I want to move this passenger side shock to the rear, I'm going to have to cut these rivets out for this front mount bracket to bring it back here so that it's like this other one right there. So that's going to be another thing I do today. Get the measurements for that so that I can order my custom length adjustable shocks. So, like I said, kind of jumping around here, but a lot of stuff that still needs to get done, you know, little things here and there. The other thing too is the brake line there. I'm gonna mount that somewhere so that it's not just chilling there, and I might mess with the wiring harness as well. So like I said, a lot of small things. We'll get it done. Okay, so that ended up being a lot more difficult than I intended it to be. For some reason, I was unable to get it to line up with this bottom hole. What ended up happening was the bottom of this leaf spring hit the bottom of this bucket. So I could not even use the bottom of this hole. Hopefully the second hole there will be sufficient enough to make it level with the front. I was able to get the rear shackle, so I don't know. We'll have to get the bed back on later on tonight and see if we're level. I'm gonna go ahead and get the drive shaft out of there and just kind of talk to you guys about that and then start painting that. So stay tuned. Alright, so let's talk about this drive shaft for just a minute here. The first thing I had them do, obviously, was shorten the drive shaft. I took a couple measurements for them. I gave them those measurements, and then they worked off those measurements to create this custom length. Basically, all they did is they more than likely pressed out this side. They pressed out this flange, made their measurements, cut it, pressed this flange back in, and then welded it. I had them put new U-joints on both sides. They're both solid U-joints. The reason I really wanted to go with a solid U-joint over a greasable U-joint is because the structural integrity of a U-joint, you know, versus a solid versus a greasable U-joint, the solid U-joint is going to be stronger than a greasable U-joint. So, okay, guys, so it's been a few days since the last time I talked to you guys. One of the things I'm getting ready to do is put the drive shaft back in. And one of the things I like to do before I do that is I like to clean up the drive shaft bolts. From the factory, they come with a red Loctite on them. And, you know, if this is the first time the drive shaft's been out, apparently, the red Loctite gets and gums up all of the threads here and on the pumpkin. So I like to just use a thread chaser, thread the bolts through it, and then I also use a chaser here to thread it into the pumpkin side, so that these bolts, they get a good secure connection. You know, I can tighten them up as hard as I can, put Loctite on these as well, so I don't have any issues there. So I'm going to clean these up, and then we'll get the drive shaft in. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The drive shaft is in. It's got a little bit of room up here that goes into the transmission, so that when the truck squats, it'll actually have a little bit of room to go into the transmission, which is what we wanted. So that is pretty sweet. That is one step closer. The other thing we made progress on this past weekend was I moved the passenger side shock mount that's on the frame. I moved it from up front there to back here. So it's pretty much the same as this one on this side. And then I mocked up where the lower shock mount will be on the axle here. I measured from that hole up to that mounting point. And then from there I took my measurements, and hopefully we will be ordering shocks very, very soon. Still need to do brakes. Yes, the calipers are still hanging. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up my video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit the like button before you go, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Hopefully going to have something either with shocks, fuel cell. I know I've said this before, but I mean, that's really the next thing to come, so hopefully that's going to be the next thing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys on the next episode.